Round 15 of the INDYCAR World Series brings us to Portland. Hello everybody and welcome to opening practice here for round 15 of the 2024 series. The Portland International Raceway plays host, and it's going to be a classic.
Man, what a team effort, the whole crew. Great group of guys this year, absolutely.
Well, we're almost all set to go. You can hear INDYCAR radio in the background as well. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to opening practice here at the Grand Prix of Portland. Let's cross over then for the first session of the day. The all cars heading out there. Green lights on. Here's INDYCAR radio.
This is the NTT INDYCAR Series. With live coverage of today's practice, this is the INDYCAR Radio Network.
Mark James welcoming you to coverage of practice number 1 in preparation for Sunday's BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland. And as we come to you, Alex Below leads the NTT INDYCAR Series Championship. 4 races to go for the 3rd time in his career. He also led the championship with 4 races to go in 21 and 23 when he took the title. Below, who has led the point standings after 8 of the 13 rounds this season, took the points lead way back at the Firestone Grand Prix of Monterey in June. Davey Hamilton joins us. Michael Young will be here. May even invite Nick Yeoman back in after he spent some time covering the initial practice session for the Indy Next Series. And Davey Hamilton, if Alex Below is looking to put a stranglehold on the championship, no better place for him to do it than right here in Portland.
Yeah, well, obviously we know how good he is at every racetrack that we go to, Mark, and this is one that he would like to put a period on it. Now, his last few races really haven't gone his way. He had a grid penalty for engine change at the last race at Worldwide Technology Speedway in St. Louis. Still came off, I think, a 6th place finish, good finish, got some points. He actually gained in the point championship because Will Power had issues with 4 laps to go, getting run over by Alexander Rossi, really no fault of their own, just kind of got checked up on a restart, and so this track seems to fit Alex well. He's won here before. He knows how to get the job done. Obviously, there's 4 races left, Mark, in our championship, starting right here. This one, we have a doubleheader at Milwaukee. I think that he would really like to have, if not clinch, all but clinch, and when it gets to Milwaukee, because I think that's going to be a big challenge. And I think the last race at Nashville, first time there as well, period. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Most of these drivers haven't been there before, just put it that way with this new style car. So it's going to be interesting to finalize these last 4 races and see if he can stay on top.
Davey, I think the timing of this for him couldn't have been any better, and here's why. Here's a look at his career. He's closing in on 1,000 laps led. 10 of his 11 career wins have come on natural terrain courses. The only other course that he's won on that's not a natural terrain course is the street course in Detroit. I know this is technically natural terrain, but it's probably a lot more like Detroit because of how flat it is. But yes, we've got 3 races left on ovals, and he's yet to pick up his first oval win.
Yeah, correct. That's right. And so that's where I think he really like to have the thing locked up before we get to those last 3 on the championship, because we know how good Colton and Will Power and those Scott Dixon, obviously those are the contenders that we're talking about that could make the championship happen. So it's a situation where yes, without a doubt, they want to make something happen here on this points battle and try to get it locked up.
I think it'd be interesting that if he doesn't do it here, that he gets a win at Milwaukee and wraps it up there, because you go back to Will Power in the early days of his career in the NTT IndyCar Series, the knock on Will was that he, in fact, could not win races on ovals, and it was a dominant performance at the Milwaukee Mile once upon a time that let people know that he was a multi-talented, multifaceted driver.
Yeah, that's what it takes, right? You just got to get the job done and show everybody what you have. And as we know, the ovals always takes a little bit of work to get the comfort level where you want it, what you need to have out of your car to make you feel good about the situation. So, like I say, it's going to be exciting to see. It's going to be exciting to these last races. I think the ovals, I can't wait to get, obviously, Worldwide Technology. Mark, how about that? Record amount of passes. I mean, just a great run. Strategies were all over the place. Had a hard time keeping up with the strategies, matter of fact. And and there were so many of them out there. I think Scott Dixon, if he pits 2 laps later, I look at the stats and kind of go back over that race. 2 laps later, I think he's in position to win that race. That's how strategies play such an important part in this sport.
21 passes for the lead at Worldwide Technology Raceway, smashing the previous mark of 13. 11 drivers held the top spot because of all of the pit strategies that were in play, including a different one by each of the 3 Team Penske drivers, Davey.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Penske, they show up, don't they, to that event. I mean, they know how to get around that racetrack. They have, fast race cars, obviously. But the great thing about it was they weren't always the one in the driver's seat. It ended up being, yes, they were run first and second. They sure did. But there was a lot of in-betweens of cars that, like I say, on different strategies, a lot of different leaders of that race. 21 lead changes, which was really outstanding. And I tell you, it was a long race. A lot of stuff happened. There's a few yellows that went, and a couple and a red flag actually at the end of it. But at the end of the day, that's what IndyCar racing is all about. You know, the best thing, those fans were able to sit in one seat and see that all the action, no matter what happened, where it was on the track, you could see it happen, and man, they made it exciting.
1.9 miles in length, and because of that, this format, Davey, that we become familiar with this year is in play for this practice session. It's a 45-minute all skate, and then they'll split the field in half and give them a couple of 10-minute sessions with a field cut in half to give them an opportunity to work during those 2 10-minute sessions with the alternate compound in preparation for qualifying tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what we do, right? I mean, the alternate tires, we know it's a softer compound tire. It's one that gets some additional speed out of them. But these teams, it takes a different balance. It takes a different setup sometimes on these red sidewall alternate tires that we run that Firestone provides for us. And that gives every team an ample opportunity to go out and find out what their car needs and not have a lot of traffic. It cuts the field in half. They can get some clean laps. They can get some straight laps and kind of give a good simulation for qualifying. And as you say, just under 2 miles, it can, when you got this many race cars on the grid, it packs up pretty quickly.
Pacific Northwest is cloudy and it is cool. Let's get the information on all of that from our Michael Young on pit lane. Michael?
It actually got a little bit warmer during that Indy Next session. Went from 63 to 65, but the big mover was the track temperature. It was 74 at the beginning of that Indy Next practice session, and as we roll into this NTT IndyCar Series practice, it's jumped up to 85, so it gained a mere 10 degrees in just that 1.5, well, just a little over an hour we've had between Indy Next and this race. Reason being, the sun came out and it was beating down, but we do have some showers and thunderstorms starting to develop to the south of us, and we were expecting rain all day today. So the fact that it's held off to this point, although we did start the morning with rain and some of the junior series started with wets on, but it has slowly dried out and we have had a beautiful day in store. We just hope that that rain stays away. Currently, Toby Sowery, the only taker out on the course, as we just see Kiffin Simpson going by the front straightaway, so most all the cars sit here on pit lane.
Yeah, having to see Toby Sowery back in the 51 machine. He's had a couple of quality rides in that car for Dale Coyne a couple of times throughout the course of this season. And Davey Hamilton, we will continue to do the debrief on the race at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Your thoughts on everything that happened toward the end of that race with the incidents that eventually took out Will Power. The second notable incident Will was involved in. He was involved in one earlier with David Malukas, which ended David Malukas' very promising night. But in the end, I think that as aggravated and as heated as everyone seemed to be, within a couple of days after the race, it seemed as though that everyone had effectively kissed and made up.
Mark, that, what you hate to see is anybody that, you don't want to, you want the fans to see a really quality race at the end of the day. You want the drivers to have a good race, and the winner's the winner, and make sure it's exciting through the whole way. And all I can say is on that situation, I think it's something that can be fixed, in all honesty. I think it's a situation to where if they just have a minimum speed at the start of the races, or starts and the restarts, that it would solve all that. Because what happened is Newgarden brought him down so slow, and then kind of just a little bit of a brake check. Without hitting the brake, all you got to do is lift off the gas. But I mean, you go to a short track USA and you have one of the slowest cars on the track, like a mini stock or something really small. Their pace is faster than what we're running the IndyCar pace on these starts, and what that does, it just domino effect. I mean, if he lifts a little bit, then everybody's ready to get on the gas, and then they smash into the back of each other. We've seen it happen time and time again, and I think that could all be fixed very simple with saying to the drivers, here's the minimum speed, and if we can go back, and another thing we had the capabilities and opportunities to do is go back and look at their telemetry. Just look at the telemetry and say, if we see anybody lift off the gas before they gas it again to try to stack everybody up, there's going to be a penalty as that as well. So it's really an easy fix. I just think they need to, enforce it and make it where these drivers and cars all have opportunity to finish a race and not have a silly wreck at the end of the race. It doesn't make us look very professional.
5 in 9 tries at Worldwide Technology Raceway for Joseph Newgarden, believe it or not. 31st of his career, Davey. Listen to this company. He's now tied with Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti, and Elio Castroneves for 10th on the all-time list.
Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, kind of snuck up on us, not realizing that he had that many wins and that much success, but well-deserved. I mean, we've talked about it time and time again, that Penske organization, whoever, when you had the opportunity to go over there and race for him, you're going to win, and no matter what, I think you're going to win, and it's just how many of them can you do, and boy, he's really proven that he can get the job done, and he's got a lot more ahead of him as well.
6 cars, by the way, are turning laps in this 45-minute session. Kyle Kirkwood is the fastest. He, though, will need to qualify the best he can because he's one of those with an unapproved engine change that will face a penalty come race day. We mentioned Toby Salary turning laps in the 51 machine. Kiffin Simpson out. Rasmussen out. Renus VK is out. And Yuri Vips getting an audition again with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, hoping to make Bobby Rahal's decision-making a little tougher, Davey, when it comes to setting his roster up for the 2025 campaign.
Yeah, he's proven time and time again that he wants to be in this series. He wants to be full-time in this series. And, man, having that opportunity, Rahal seems to be the best opportunity for him. So he's going to run hard. We know that. He's going to lay it on the line and go as good as he can. And, by the way, no mistake, he's done a really good job with that team in the past. So, you can expect good things out of them.
Got, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 drivers. I think there's 14 or so mathematically still eligible for the championship. That will most assuredly change by the time they load up the haulers and head off to Milwaukee. But right now, Alex Palou with 443 points. Colton Herta jumped to second, 384 points. Scott Dixon, 378, is in third place. Will Power took a 17-point hit with that late race incident. He tumbles to fourth, 377 back. Then Scott McLaughlin, I think, and that's where the cutoff line is for all intents and purposes, I think, Davey, if not maybe a little higher than that. He has 370 points, and then you go to sixth place running Pato Award, who had a disastrous weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. He has 345 points back. It is, I think, for all intents and purposes, Palou's championship to lose.
It really is. I think there's 4 people in this championship right now that have the opportunity to try to win it. I think Palou, obviously, he's the favorite. He's where you need to be. He's got the majority of the points. He's had a lot of success at the tracks like this, especially this one here at Portland, and obviously with a great race team. And by the way, another great thing about when we talk about it, he's done it before. He knows how to get this job done. He's been there. He's done it. So that's that experience. It definitely pays off.
11th place finish for Colton Herta in the first race in Iowa. Were it not for that, he might be a little closer because you go back to his 19th place finish in Detroit. Since that time, all top 6 finishes, even a couple of podium finishes. A second place at Laguna Seca. He was the winner at Toronto. He finished 5th at Worldwide Technology Raceway, and the lone blemish during that stretch is that 11th place finish in the first race in Iowa, Davey.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, he has been laying it down. I mean, he's been doing a really good job and knows that that's where he needs to be. Just had some bad luck going early in the season, and that seems to have changed. I mean, he's one that has the confidence that team has. By the way, that Andretti team, they've really found some speed, haven't they, Mark? I mean, you look at pretty much all of those drivers within that team, and they've really come alive. And I have to say, the one that's maybe a little surprising that hasn't shown it. If they get a little luck, he shows the speed. That's Ericsson. Moved over to that Andretti team and just hasn't had the luck that they hope to have, but he's got the talent, he can get the job done with that team.
Yeah, and I think that's what it boils down to for Marcus Ericsson. I mean, he's just had some lousy luck. I mean, he had a string there after the Indianapolis 500 of top 10s and even a couple of top 5 finishes, but his last 3 races, Davey, to your point, 23rd in the second race at Iowa, 18th at Toronto, and a 24th finish at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Yeah, that's not going to get the job done, right? We all know that he's faster than that and better than that. It's just getting that program all lined up, get a little bit of luck on his side. He has had the speed. We've seen that time and time again, and he has a dedication to get it done. And by the way, he's Indy 500 winner. I mean, he knows how to win races. He wants to be a champion now, and it's not going to happen this year, but hopefully that, after this kind of not a miserable season, I don't want to call it that because it hasn't been, but just if he can get just luck on his side, it would have been much better, obviously.
Back to Colton Herta, we mentioned he's been on a bit of a tear of late, getting himself into championship contention. Earlier today, our Michael Young caught up with a driver of the Gainbridge machine.
With Colton Herta getting ready to run here at Portland this weekend, climbed yourself back into this championship, and with just 4 races remaining and the 3 ovals, you put yourself in a heck of a position considering how this season started. When did this resurgence in your mind start happening?
I think we were on it the whole time. We had a little bit of a downspout for 2 races with Indy and Detroit. But other than that, we finished in the top 10 basically every single race. So, and I think this is the 3rd or 4th top 5 in a row. So we've been on a roll here. Hopefully we can just keep it going.
Speaking of 3rd and 4th top 5, just a weekend ago, an insane finish to that race. Was there any discussion with Joseph Newgarden? Is this all past us now, or are we still concerned about restarts and that not yet been resolved?
I mean, I didn't crash, so it's not. Plenty of other guys can talk to him.
All in all, what was your thoughts on that restart? Did you have an issue with it?
I think it was late, and it was slow, and then they threw the green when Joseph didn't go. So, whether it is on to the team for Joseph to go sooner, or whether it's on to INDYCAR to not throw the green and the driver isn't gone. I don't know. I don't exactly know how the rules are written to allow that sort of stuff, but it is what it is.
You're just there racing. So this weekend, keys to being successful in Portland. What's the difficulties about this racetrack?
I mean, it's fairly straightforward track, to be honest. It's one of the simpler ones that we go to, but that's why it's so entertaining, is because the gaps are so tight. So if you have any little misstep, like I'm talking quarter of a tenth, that could stop you from transferring. It's such a tight racetrack here. You see the whole group could be within 2-3 tenths, which you won't see that anywhere, even on the ovals. So it is an insanely tight track. Qualifying is important because it is difficult to overtake, and that's the biggest thing.
Is there a place where you can gain time at this track that you like, one of your favorite corners maybe?
I mean, it's tough because when you have a track like this where it's just constant left, right, whatever you gain in one corner, you're usually out of position and give up in the next corner compared to other guys if they do it the other way. So it's hard. That's why it's hard to have big margins, right? You go into 1 and 2. In 3, it's a right, left, right. Then you go into 5, 6, 7, it's a right, left, right. And then to end the track, it's a left, right, right. And so it's kind of a give and get throughout the whole track of how aggressive you can be in one spot and how conservative you can be in the other one. It's very hard to get right.
Hopefully you get it right this weekend. We wish you all the best and continued success in this championship as well.
Thank you.
Well, that's Colton Herta.
There have been 6 multiple winners this season. Davey Hamilton, Pato Award, Scott Dixon, Scott McLaughlin, Alex Below, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Power. The only driver to get to victory lane and only do it one time has been Colton Herta.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if he doesn't get in there again. As he said, pretty confident in the tracks that he has left. The car has been really good. They've really got a handle on that. It seems like that Andretti team in a whole has found some speed, not just in IndyCar, in Indy Next as well. I mean, Foster leading the championship, seems dominant every time we go on the racetrack right now, along with Jamie Chadwick, teammate, winning a race, being on a pole. She's getting the job done. So pretty darn impressive out of that Andretti camp right now in both fronts of Indy Next and IndyCar.
Pretty pretty darn impressive is Renus VK, as we have 24 cars now that have turned laps, make that 25, as the session is about 20 minutes into it. Again, a 45-minute session, then we'll split them into a couple of 10-minute groups so they can get some practice on those alternates before they go qualifying tomorrow. Renus VK was just bumped from the top spot. He had it for a while with a time of 59.113, just supplanted by Alexander Rossi with a 59.111. How about Renus VK with a top 10 finish at Worldwide Technology Raceway for Ed Carpenter?
Yeah, no, that's a team that they need some success. This is get it where it is they need some success. They haven't been in that top 5 where they really need to be on a consistent basis. Ed, they've had Ed, still driving the ovals. He still has a couple opportunities. Just can't get it right. Whenever they seem to have some speed, they're up towards the front. Something goes wrong in the race. It's a team that I want to see, obviously, have some success. It's kind of like we talked about AJ. The last few years haven't been kind to him, but it seems like with that alliance now with Penske, it seems like they're coming to life and have some opportunities now with Maluka signing with that team, and not sure who the other driver is going to be. It's been really I should say hush-hush. They just haven't had an opportunity to announce yet. I think it's a situation where there's a lot of time to still consider what's going to happen, or whether it's going to be Ferrucci. I think I'm confident saying that it's going to be Ferrucci or Stingray Robb, one of the two, because they're already there and to team up with Malukas. But who knows? You just never know. But Ed Carver kind of needs the same thing. Get some stability, make sure the drivers stay. I know it's a contract year for VK. Talk to Ed. I think Ed wants him to stay. Well, I know Ed wants him to stay there. It's just a matter of if that's the best thing. And sooner they can get an announcement, the better for that team, for sure.
Bigger picture is having Kristen Rasmussen back in the car this weekend, and then Ed takes over for the final 3. And not saying they're on the bubble, but it's tightening up for them in terms of that leader circle money, Davey. They're currently 24th, but keep in mind the 8 and the 4 in Ganassi not eligible for that. So it's getting a little tight between the 20 car of Ed Carpenter Racing and the 78 of Huubko's Holliger. That's just a 3-point differential right now.
Yeah, no, both teams, obviously, they need that. They need the get in that circle to get. It's $1 million in the day, Mark. That's a lot of money at the end of the season. Additional money for those teams to be able to operate and do what they need to do to continue on at a high level. So it's about the same. The rich get richer, and the poor sometimes got to just keep fighting. I think that's the situation with Ed Coyne, with the Unko, Solinger. They need to just continue to fight and find that speed and try to drive towards the front of these fields.
Less than 25 minutes remaining in this initial session. It's Rossi, McLaughlin, VK, Yuri Vips 4th quick, David Maluka's 5th fastest, then Dixon, Power, Lundgaard, then Rahal and Felix Rosenquist. Pato Award is 11th, Alex Palou is 12th, Kirkwood 13th, Ericsson 14th, 15th is Newgarden, 16th Lundquist, 17th Siegel, 18th Fittipaldi, 19th Simpson, Harvey is 20th, Grosjean 21st, Armstrong 22nd, Rasmussen 23rd, Toby Sowery 24th, 25th is Stingray Robb, 26th is Connor Daly, 27th Santino Ferrucci. Rossi, by the way, at a time of 59.007. Power now is P2 at 59.092. Scott McLaughlin has jumped up to 3rd, 59.101, bumping VK to 4th, Yuri Vips to 5th. Couple of other good stories at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Best career finish, first top 10 for Stingray Robb. Davey, he finishes 9th. Marcus Armstrong finishes 8th. And how about the rookie Nolan Siegel bringing his car home in the 7th position?
Yeah, how about that? And you got to look at all those. They drove hard. They had good race cars. It wasn't a luck situation. They were up there all day long, those drivers, and towards the front. So really good run for all of them. I think, Stingray, we don't need to know that he's had a really tough season. Just hasn't gone his way. Got upside down. He's had a couple crashes at Laguna Seca. Brand new car got in the wall. Got upside down in Iowa. Just, been in the back of the pack quite a bit when it comes to qualifying, and he needs it. He's trying hard. Luck, back to luck, just hasn't gone his way, and that's something that I'm sure it's a fight to keep that ride, and he needs all the luck he can get. That definitely helped. And so Siegel, we know he's going to be in that McLaren car for a long time. Not that he needs that luck, not that he's just learning all these tracks and these cars, but man, what outstanding performance. Finds his way towards the front of the field. Matter of fact, leading the race, sped on the pit lane, by the way, and had to do a penalty for the speeding on pit lane and still had that great finish.
Got a spin by Santino Ferrucci with that Phoenix sponsorship on that car. A brand new livery for Santino Ferrucci, and he's able to let the traffic clear and able to get it back out onto the racetrack. And looks like no harm, no foul may come to the pit lane for the obligatory look-see. A lot of rumors out there, some of them involving Linus Lundqvist, and his future may be in jeopardy in Ganassi Racing. He's doing all he can to make the decision tougher, or at least make himself attracted to another race team, Davey. Second career podium finish for the rookie Linus Lundqvist at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing, that maybe he's on the hot seat, and I know, I heard some rumors the drivers that may replace him, but I'm going, man, for long term, I'm not sure that would be the smart thing to do to replace him. I think that he's coming into his own. He did a great job in Indy Next, and really he's learning these cars, trying to do it in a proper manner, not tear a lot of stuff up. He's been on a pole, he's been on the podium. I mean, I think it's a situation where he's coming to his own right now, and man, I tell you, I think that he has what it takes, and I think I would, I'd keep gambling on him at this point. But there's a lot of other things that go behind what it takes. And Lundqvist right now in that 16th position right now. Newgarden in 15 kind of tells you that he's in some good company right there. Ericsson in that 14th spot. Herter right now 22nd, which I think that'll change pretty quickly. Ferrucci in that last spot right now. Stingray Robb struggling here a little bit again today in that 26th spot. Connor Daly 27th. First time back in that. He's the super fill-in driver. Talked to his mom Beth this morning. And just, he's fortunate to be able to, have these opportunities. As Dady just went somewhere, got a good lap. Oh, no, Ferrucci, after going off track, moves himself from last up to that 23rd spot.
So 21 minutes remaining in this initial portion of the session. Rossi, Power, McLaughlin, VK, Dixon, the top five. Few people busier during a race weekend than Kara Kristalik and Firestone, but Michael Young's gotten her to stand still for a few minutes.
It's just trying to keep her from moving around is one of the most difficult things of the weekend, because she's always pacing up and down pit lane, trying to figure out if everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. You're kind of like the boss of these teams. If they get a little too crazy with their setups, you got to scold them.
Well, usually they behave themselves pretty well at road courses and street courses. You get a nice cambered in front, and it helps you be able to turn left and right equally well. So we're always watching what they're doing, but usually they behave themselves well.
How quickly can you tell that something is awry, that it just doesn't look right, that somebody's maybe being a little overly aggressive with their setup? Well,
the nice thing here is we get data here at the Firestone timing stand that helps us understand what kinds of temperatures and pressure ranges they're running. So if it's an oval, especially short ovals, people like to run a little bit lower on pressures. So we get that immediate feedback, and that helps them let them know early. So if it's very early in a race, we can get ahead of the fact and make sure everybody's running equal and fair pressures.
Do they maybe see you head down to the pit box if it gets a little too aggressive?
Well, there are a couple of them that have told me before that we look a little bit intimidating when we're coming down, especially for walking pretty quickly. But we actually have a really good relationship with the engineers, and they understand that the main thing that we have is safety for the drivers, and so they're really good about it.
Talk a little bit about the tires this weekend. Obviously, running those alternates, didn't have those, obviously, with the oval last weekend, but is it the same red tire that we had last year?
It's similar, but it's not exactly the same. So a lot of our compounds for road courses, the only ones we've had post-hybrid are Mid-Ohio and, of course, here. They're a touch more durable, so you'll see a little bit less grip. But with the extra weight of the hybrid, then it'll probably be a bit of a wash.
What makes you go that way when you decide with this hybrid that we need to make them a little more durable? How far do you push that durability before you lose the raceability, if you will?
Yeah, so luckily we've had a lot of time with this hybrid before we actually started racing it. So we started working on this a couple years before even the first race. So we're able to do some testing and understand what that added weight means and what it means for us both on an oval, which is a little bit different because you have a lot of weight transfer on an oval versus a road course. So being a little bit conservative in year one, a little bit more conservative on both tire compounds and tire pressures and tire construction, and then as we start to go into next year, we'll be able to tweak and tune those compounds a little bit more.
Winters can be brutal in the upper Northwest. How have you seen this track change? Have you seen it change over the past several years?
Well, one of the great things that the Firestone engineers can do at the beginning of every race weekend, yesterday we were out for the track walk and we're doing track scanning. And this one, it does weather quite a bit, but the overall characteristics of the track haven't changed that much.
I'll ask this and keep my fingers crossed that I don't put us in a bad situation, but We have rain tires this weekend, and we see a little bit of rain developing just to the south of the track. How does the rain tire program work with Firestone and these teams?
Yeah, so we have up to 5 sets of tires for every road and street course. Back when we had double headers, we would have had more, but of course 5 sets for the weekend, and they can use them as they see fit here. So don't think that we'll use more than a couple of sets, but we build plenty during the year that they can use them as they need them.
Not that it's going to rain, but if it does rain, we're ready.
Yeah, we're always prepared.
I'll let you get back to it. Have a wonderful race weekend.
All right, thank you, Michael. You too.
Got it. That's Kara Kristalik, Executive Director of Race Tire Engineering for Bridgestone Firestone.
One of the absolute best in the business for sure. We appreciate the insight and the intel that we get from Firestone, the access that they provide us in terms of the tires that they provide. And I think, Davey, let's face it, there was a little bit of hand-wringing by all of us as we headed to Worldwide Technology Raceway last weekend, and we wondered what the product would be like. Now, granted, I think the varying pit strategy played a role in it, but I think you can give an attaboy and a pat on the back to Firestone for the compound that they brought, and the fall off that resulted and made the competitive racing very, very competitive. And I think one of the best races we've seen at that facility in recent memory.
Yeah, no question about it. They do such a good job. And even when things don't go got a big ride on one of the Sirius car, nationwide car, the 27 Kirkwood.
Yeah,
man, what a
Kirkwood
fly.
doing the Dukes of Hazzard through there.
Going down into turn 1. They're cutting that curb completely off down in turn 1. Nick and I talked about a little bit earlier in the Indy Next. They're going completely below the curbing in turn 1. We see it again. Well, he actually went below it, but he got the left side tires just a little bit above it. Went straight across track, hit the curb, and it was like a motorcycle jump. Launched him up in there a few times. Was able to continue on. Doesn't look like it hurt that car, but it was completely all four. They're in the pits right now checking it out. But boy, what a ride for Kirkwood down there in turn 1.
And they're either going to say, well, listen, we better give you a mouthpiece or just don't do that again. One or the other. Those are your options.
I'm pretty surprised, in all honesty. I thought there would be a change down in turn 1 because that curbing, what happens, Mark, it's out there. There's, say, 2 foot of curbing, but then there's like 4 foot below it between the Armco barrier and that curbing with nothing. So what these drivers are doing is they're making a shortcut. They're just barely clearing that Armco, getting their left side tires up on that curbing a little bit so the curbing would be on the outside tires at that point, which we don't see very often. But I really thought that they would either move those curbs in a little bit to open that corner up just a little bit to try to make lap 1 a little bit easier, or put that curbing all the way down to where they got to go around it, so curbing wouldn't be such an advantage. But right now it's the same as last year, and we've seen it's pretty wild. We see Kirkwood beating, maybe not the first one we've seen, hit those and get airborne over them.
Alexander Rossi with a bit of it off. He got right back on. If you look at we have a camera shot that's of ground level. If you look through driver's right, and again, they're coming dangerously close to that Armco every time, and most of them are cutting off that curbing, especially at speed. I think they'll do that during qualifying sims by and large. If you go back to a year ago, Davey, if you remember, that was an actual hole there. And they have at least brought that asphalt up to ground level with the rest of the racing surface. But the problem is, if you don't catch it just right, those rumble strips there are pronounced enough that they can throw you right off just straight ahead. You won't make the corner, and then you really get airborne like Kyle Kirkwood did.
Yeah, as you say, that is a great angle that we can see. Actually, I'm just sitting right above it, but they go out of my sight before they get into that area, so I can't tell where they hit it. But on the camera angle you're talking, you're right. Some of them go completely below, but majority of them, there goes one of the McLaren cars all the way below. Then the car behind him just didn't go. He stayed off him, just got the right sides up on that curbing. Now, don't know which is going to be the best, and I'll get out there on Sunday before the race and let you know exactly how that feels in the 2-seater, just to see if it really upsets the car to go below it or how that works. But obviously, the smoother you can keep your cars, we see another McLaren car cut that corner completely off, getting right down to that hub rail and put the left side tires on that curbing instead of the rights.
I think what you should do to give them a full effect, whoever the passenger is that you've taken along for that ride, I think you should try to do exactly what Kyle Kirkwood just did.
Yeah, well,
I think that would be giving them their money's worth.
So one thing for sure that does, it definitely when it lands, it's never that much fun. It definitely wants to knock the wind out of you a bit, so it's not that much fun. And
remind you the first time you drove one of Robbie Gordon's stadium trucks, right?
That's right, exactly right. And they're good when they're good, but they're not that good when you're flying through the air. And I don't know that they really appreciate that too much, but I'm going to test it out. Somebody may not have that smooth of a ride, but I'm going to definitely test that out so we can tell our listeners exactly, how it feels down there and what it's going to be. And actually, my fastest seat in sports is Sam Watson, won the bronze medal in Paris Olympics, holds the fastest speed climber record in history. Only 18 years old from Texas, so that'll be our fastest seat in sports rider this week.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Yeah, look forward to that for sure. Let's go back to pit lane, Michael Young.
And now the point in this practice session, teams starting to make changes. Marcus Ericsson sits on pit lane. They're going to adjust the rear dampers on that car. They've changed them outright. Also see a couple of the Arrow McLaren cars sitting on pit lane as well. Connor Daly sits on pit lane. No major changes to that car or what we can notice, although they are looking at those rear dampers. So as I said, as we see the 21 of Venus VK come in, this about the point in this session where we see everybody start to make those changes, ride heights, things of that nature, just to find that little bit of extra speed. And not to belabor this point, but as I look to my east and my west and to the south ever so slightly, the clouds starting to build up, so we may see Mother Nature take a turn for the worse before this session's over, but we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Will Power continues to climb in speed. Will is now at a 58.926, and that eclipses Alexander Rossi. McLaughlin, VK, Scott Dixon the top 5. Then below, Yuri Vips continues a strong performance back in the car for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. Malukas, Lundgaard, and Rosenquist the top 10. Then Rahal, Armstrong, O'Ward, Herta, and Kyle Kirkwood. Nolan Siegel 16th, Ferrucci 17th, Ericsson, Rasmussen, Joseph Newgarden 20th, Linus Lundqvist 21st, 22nd Fittipaldi, 23rd Grosjean, Simpson 24th, Harvey 25th, Stingray Robb 26th, Toby Sowery 27th, and Connor Daly currently 28th, quick with 11 minutes to go. Dave, you want to share some career numbers with you. 143 starts, 8 wins, including the Indianapolis 500, 7 poles, 30 podium finishes, 50 top 5s, 88 top 10s. He's led 40 races and almost 1,000 laps. And I'm talking about a guy that still does not have a ride for next year at Alexander Rossi.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you look at the stats, obviously he can get the job done. There's no question about it. I thought he's going to potentially end his career, honestly, with Arrow McLaren. Thought that's okay. There's a good opportunity for him. He's going to be there for a long, long term. And, unfortunately, that didn't work out. Now his dad's his rep and his agent, and Peter Rossi, working really hard, said 90% sure that he's going to be in a car full-time next year. But, 90% gives you a lot of confidence, but until you get that ride and get it settled, down and you're in it for full time, it's always a crapshoot. So, I'm sure he's going to land somewhere. It's just at this point in his career, we know he can still get the job done. But with a lot of these young drivers, as a matter of fact, I have to say that he was probably replaced a little bit, thinking about, they got Nolan Siegel. The kid is young. He's 18 years old, and, quite a future and shows a lot of talent. And sometimes these drivers, they're looking at the future, not just what they can do in the next few years.
Feast or famine type year. It's been 9 top 10 finishes for Alexander Rossi, but a 25th place finish at Barber Motorsports Park. He finished 18th at Road America, finished 15th in the second race at Iowa, missed Toronto with that injury, and then finished 19th at Worldwide Technology Raceway, caught up in all that melee and that mess at the end. Earlier today, a variety of subject covered with Alexander Rossi and our Michael Young.
Alexander Rossi getting ready for our last road course of the year here at the Portland International Raceway. Is this a place that you enjoy? Do you like this place?
I do. I like driving around here.
The city or the actual road course?
The racetrack.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of the racetrack? Because from what I'm understanding, I don't want to say it's Mickey Mouse, but it's a lot of left, right, left. So when you gain, you can lose. Yes, no?
Yeah, I think what makes it enjoyable is it's a relatively easy lap. It's pretty short. And so you're fighting for hundredths. So it's when you get it right, it's a pretty cool feeling because it's very little things that make the difference. But I also think it usually races pretty well. There's always a yellow here that kind of makes it a 2-stop or a 3-stop race. And so that opens up the kind of options in terms of what you do. Last year, the red tire was pretty terrible, so that made it exciting because everyone had to swallow that pill at some point. So I think this race definitely, historically, obviously turn one creates some chaos. There's enough elements in it that even though it's a really short and basic lap, it still produces a pretty exciting race.
Do you know when you get one right? Do you know when you've got that extra 100th in a lap, or is it something, I mean, can you feel it?
Yeah, it's amazing that you can feel, half a tenth, but you certainly can.
So as we get into the final couple of races of this season, reflecting back on last weekend, are you at terms with what had happened, or you still struggle with that?
I'm still very disappointed. I think we were one of the top 3 cars that night from a speed standpoint, and for Will and I, for everyone, I mean, it sucks for anyone to DNF, but to make it that far through the night and through all of the trials and tribulations, and then to have it end with nothing is a hard pill to swallow. But I mean, we've talked about it from a race control / driver standpoint, and I think there will be changes that come down the line. Whether that apply, I think there'll be one that applies immediately in Milwaukee, but in terms of wholesale philosophy approach changes to restarts on ovals, I think that'll be a next year thing. But everyone's talking about it, and I think ultimately, what we have done this year on ovals in terms of changing the rules to make sure jump starts aren't a thing has really been effective, and this is really just a consequence of that. And you can't always predict the outcomes of some of these changes, but I think as a whole, what we've done to improve the show on ovals for restarts has worked really well.
Do you have an ultimate goal for the remainder of your time at Arrow McLaren? Is there something you yet to achieve or you want to achieve? Obviously wins or something, but what would be a good finish for you in the number 7 car?
I think at this point 6th through 11th in the championship is really tight. So just to try and finish there, 6th, 7th would be pretty good, considering the run of 3 races we've had. So that's got to be the goal. Obviously, you always want to win, but I think if we can get a couple of spots in the championship here, that'd be a good thing.
See, after Detroit, the positive Alexander Rossi has really brought things to life. I like it.
Oh yeah, 3 DNFs in a row. Yeah.
Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
That's Alexander Rossi.
Davey, there's a lot at play there, and unlike a lot of us, you know specifically the business side of the sport. You've been on the good side of it and the not so good side of it, and a lot of people scratching their head, but every reason to believe this former 500 champion and championship contender, quite frankly, in his days at Andretti Global, is going to find a home, but it's got to be the right fit for him and them. I mean, there's a couple of teams that on the surface seem to make sense. I mean, folks have mentioned Meyer-Shank, but there's some changes in the offing there. That technical alliance with Andretti Global going away, talking about another technical alliance with another team moving forward that might have an impact on drivers currently with that team. We're speaking of Ganassi Racing, so who knows? It's all going to shake out, and I think if I'm a gambling man, I think it's going to shake out with Alexander Rossi having a full-time ride somewhere.
Yeah, I think the situation there too is with Alexander's. You just said the stats, right? I mean, he's got wins. He's got a 500 win. He has not won a championship. I know he would like to do that, but he's got a legit. He's had a really good career. I mean, he's been able to run well. So I think it's a situation, honestly, that he isn't going to just settle. It's not like he's going to go to a bad team where he doesn't have opportunity to win. I don't think. I think he's financially good in life. I think his career has done good in life, and I think that he still has the fire and the energy and the pit in his stomach to want to be a winner. So just taking a ride, I don't think is in his book. I think it's taking a ride that he feels that he can win and have success at. So that's going to be the key point of where he ends up.
Well, and I think, too, we go back over the last 4 or 5, maybe 5, a little bit more than that. The two things that I point to that, even when you're still able to be competitive and win races, it doesn't automatically mean that team owner is going to extend you. I mean, you look at the decisions that have been made involving Juan Montoya at Team Penske and Helio Castroneves at Team Penske. I mean, So it's not out of the question. It's not a lock to say you're going to have a ride just because you're a former 500 winner anymore.
No, that's right. I mean, you're always on the ropes. I mean, there's always talent coming up. There's always, at the end of the day, it takes sponsorship. It takes funding, a lot of funding to run these cars. Sometimes the driver has that funding that's really good that can come in and maybe have the opportunity to keep that team going and make it stronger. There's obviously sponsors that sometimes are tied to drivers. There's actually other sponsors that say, no, I want this particular driver that, or they have an opportunity to pick. So there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes, and it's always good if you have that opportunity to say, not only if you're a great driver and win a lot of races, but you have somebody that wants to back you and take you to the top. That's always the key situation, but it doesn't always happen that way. As we see some of the best race drivers at times walking through the pits, and we see Newgarden. Whoa, big moment for Newgarden coming off of turn 3, going down into turn 4, almost spins that car out. I think that's where that was. That is actually going into turn 6 and 7. Boy, he kept it under control, but definitely got that car loose. A new tire rack sponsor for him this weekend.
One of those places, Davey, where quite frankly the runoff areas are somewhat forgiving. Maybe not tell Kyle Kirkwood that between 1 and 3, but they are somewhat forgiving in the fact that off means you could typically get back on. But the byproduct of that is that as this race progresses and people have these offs, that throws a lot of dirt and dust that kind of combine with the marbles that come off with the tire wear to create some very tricky situations outside of the race crew for these teams and drivers.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, no question about it. You see that with Newgarden. He got into the dust a little bit there. Now, fortunately, most of that went off course. So you got Simpson right behind him, sees what's going on. He slows down. But that dust, fortunately, on that situation with Newgarden, it went to the outside of the track, didn't drag a lot on. But you're right. You got to keep track when a driver goes off and on. By the way, it's pretty amazing because it was pouring down rain when we arrived here last night. I mean, pouring down rain. And he goes off course right now and it shoots up dust. So it tells you that they've had a dry spell here for a while because it didn't make it to where it's muddy or sloppy. It's still dusty when you go off course.
90 seconds remaining in this initial session. And again, a couple of 10-minute sessions for these drivers. They'll split them in half and give them an opportunity to get some qualifying sims in with those alternates. Alexander Rossi continues to be fastest. He's up to a 58.761. Will Power second quick at a 58.926. Colton Herta at 59.043 and Scott McLaughlin at 59.101. Regis VK continues to have a good initial session. He's fifth fastest at 59.113. Then Scott Dixon, Christian Lundgaard, Alex Palou. Yuri Vips continues a solid run out of the gate for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Kyle Kirkwood is 10th fastest. Malukas 11th. Rosenquist is 12th. Graham Rahal is 13th. Armstrong is 14th and Pato Award 15th. The rest of the rundown after we hear from Michael Young.
Like to see a driver out of a car, especially in a practice session. Connor Daly is outside of the car. What is the issue? Do you know?
Yeah, it just looks like just a fuel pressure issue of some kind. So haven't really been able to do a lap at full power. So just kind of, honestly, just I guess kind of bad luck. Something must have happened. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But we can't make a change in pit lane. It's something we have to go back and dive deep into to fix. So I know this team will do a great job doing it. But yeah, I need all the laps that I can get here. So yeah, a bit of a shame for sure.
It's always these situations that it's like, I just like just a break. Just allow something to go right so you can get some practice in. To your point, this is a very important practice session, and not to be a part of it puts you behind the 8 ball for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, this car, even from just a couple out laps there, it's definitely a much different car to drive now with the weight and the hybrid unit on the road course for sure over the oval. So, and we'll miss out on running reds, which is obviously really detrimental. But yeah, I mean, starting on the back foot for sure. But I mean, anything can happen here. I mean, I just it's a shame because obviously I think this team does a great job, and I want to do the best job I can for them. But starting behind already is a tough one. So we'll be all right.
So what do you do for the remainder of this session? Do you learn anything? Is there anything you can take in?
I mean, I've got a great teammate, so you know, and he's going through a lot. They're going to work through everything they can, and we'll probably obviously try to follow their lead. But yeah, just try to watch video and watch. Now that I've at least felt a little bit of what is going on. I mean, we didn't really even get to go fast yet, but just try to pick up on as much information as possible, and then just try not to ram my head through the drywall tonight, just waiting for the next session.
All the best. Don't do that. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's Connor Daly, guys.
Yeah, good stuff from Connor Daly, and the checkered flag flies on this initial portion of the session. And the fastest, Alexander Rossi at a 58.671. Will Power at a 58.926. Herta, third fastest at a 59.043. Scott McLaughlin, fourth fastest at a 59.101. Regis VK completes the top five at a 59.113. Scott Dixon, 59.151. Kristen Lundgaard at a 59.159. Same for Alex Below at a 59.159. Let's see. Yuri Vips, ninth fastest. Kyle Kirkwood, 10th. David Malukas, 11th. Felix Rosenquist is 12th fastest. Graham Rahal, 13th fastest. Armstrong, 14th. Potto Ward is 15th fastest. Then Joseph Newgarden, 16th. Quick Santino Ferrucci, 17th fastest. Pietro Fittipaldi, 18th. Nolan Siegel, 19th. And let's see, Stingray Robb also among the top 20 in this session. Erickson, 21st. Rasmussen, 23rd. Check that. Rasmussen, 22nd. Then Linus Lundqvist. Then Roman Grosjean. Then Kiffin Simpson. Then Jack Harvey, then Toby Sowery, and we just heard from Connor Daly. And Davey, got to be awfully frustrating for a race team to have those kind of issues out of the box. That explains why he only turned to 4 laps. But bottom line is this: he's got a lot of faith in that race team, a lot of faith in his teammate, and he knows that he should be in pretty good shape when they go for that final practice session before they go qualifying early tomorrow.
Yeah, let's hope so. A situation where he says, hey, I got a teammate out there. He's working very hard, obviously get some information. But right now, that his teammate is Roman Grosjean. We do know that he's fast. We do know that he's good, but he's only 24th. Connor, like I say, with no laps in his last in the chart, but the two slowest Chevrolets at this point. So I don't know if Grosjean's having some problems as well or some issues. But right now, that team's struggling to find speed, no question about it. How about Ferrucci? He found a little speed. He was at the bottom of that chart for a while. We've seen him off course. Then new sponsorship on that car, Phoenix Investments, shoots up. A little odd not to see that black and orange as well, that AJ Foyt colors of that number 14, but shoots up to that 17th spot, so found a little bit of speed there. Newgarden, we've seen him get pretty squirrely off of turn 7 over there. Didn't find that speed he needed, but Rossi looks like he's looking for a job, doesn't he? I mean, he's on top of the chart. Looks like that he wants to prove to everybody that he's legit, still legit, and can get the job done no matter what, and then wants to solidify a full-time ride for next season, puts himself in that P1 spot.
DHL crew among those doing plenty of work on the car of Alex Palou, and so Davey, they'll take this opportunity to pour over those race cars and get them ready for qualifying sims, and let's just assume that the majority of that 45-minute session, I mean, I'm sure they worked on qualifying sims with the primary tires because that will be an element of qualifying, but what adjustments, what changes will they make from the end of this most recent 45-minute session to the car? What adjustments will they make? This based upon driver preference or whatever as they get ready to put these alternates on?
Yeah, I think it's a situation, Mark, honestly, it's where there will be a change, more than likely, on the softer compound tire, whether it's more understeer, making the thing to where it doesn't want to turn as well, or maybe it has a little more front grip than rear and it backs a little loose. So it's just really a balance change just to see where they can push the limits, how they can be faster, where they can be faster. But the biggest key is see if they need to make that change, a balance change between the standard tires and the alternate tires. And by the way, as Rossi said last year, that tire wasn't the most ideal tire, went away pretty quickly here, but everybody had to, as he said, swallow that pill and go through it and figure out when the best time to run that tire is. Now Firestone, as we talked about, what great partners they are. We love them in our sport, and for them to be able to do what they do and make it the same for everybody and make it really, first of all, safe and consistent for all these drivers and teams is key. And so they know what they're doing. They come here every year and continue to improve on what they have for tires.
We talked plenty about Alexander Rossi and the situation he finds himself in, ninth in the points championship. Let's look at the rest of that team that where he currently calls home. Nolan Siegel in that number 6 Smart Stop Arrow McLaren Chevrolet. I'm not really going to waste our time talking about where he stands in points because it's not been a full season for him, but certainly got a lot of spring in his step, and we've seen flashes. He's shown it as to why they have so much faith in him, and we're willing to put him in that car now and basically certainly do, as we've referred to it as that paid internship. And a frustrating weekend for Pato O'Ward. He was kind of in championship contention, Davey, and got to be frustrated. He's 6th in points, 345 points back. But it has been an interesting season and a season of challenges for Arrow McLaren. If you would have gone back to, say, late February, early March, and told Zach Brown that all of the things were going to unfold that did unfold, he'd have told you were crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, we were all talking about every week, the decisions that Arrow McLaren were making and Zach Brown, and some things were a question. They were in the media, drivers getting changed, and it moved around and let go, and one guy in, the next guy out, and it's been, I'll be honest with you, it's been a little slow in the press with that Arrow McLaren team not having all these changes. Seems like they have things kind of nailed down, locked down where they want to be, and obviously they have speed in their car as their P1 right now in this first practice session. It may change after everybody runs on these reds, but still the guy that's not going to be with that team anymore is P1. So that goes to show you just never know. Decisions are hard to make. Sometimes you make good ones, sometimes you make bad, and that's from teams, drivers, all the above. But that's what makes it exciting, Mark, in this sport, is it keeps it mixed up. It's just very seldom. We got to go to Ganassi with Scott Dixon. We got to go to Will Power, on the Penske side. Been there a long time. Some of these drivers that don't switch around, it usually pays off. I'll be honest with you. I think that loyalty with a good team, and even when you go through rough times, situations where, if you remember, Will Powers won the Indy 500, but he's also been in position not to make the Indy 500 with Roger Penske. They've been that far off the pace, having to start in the last row. But I continue to say those drivers and teams that can really bond together or lock together, have a good program, and they're in it for the long haul, they're the ones that usually have the most success.
9 minutes remaining in this 10-minute session. First group is underway, and we'll give you that roll call once they clear the timing and scoring limit. I want to talk to you, Davey, about the mindset. When you know you're not coming back, I know conventional wisdom. Okay, you look up, you see Alexander Rossi and say, well, he's trying to impress. I mean, Alexander Rossi doesn't need to impress anybody at this point.
Yeah,
we read his stats. He's a 500 winner. So I think it's a misnomer to suggest that when a driver knows that he might not be coming back, or maybe he wants to move on, I think you guys and gals are so ultra competitive that has little to no impact on your approach. I mean, let's face it, you all race because you want to win regardless of the circumstances.
That's right. We want to win no matter what the situation is. No question about it. I mean, that's why we're here. It doesn't matter what what team, what we're doing. It's a situation that we always want to win, and no matter what, if you know you're going to that team or you're not going back with that team, it's like you still need to end it on a good note.
So, again, we are into this first 10-minute session. Clock already showing under 8 minutes. David Malukas has gone to P1, and he is joined in this group by Will Power, Roman Grosjean, Nolan Siegel, Kiffin Simpson, Rinus VeeKay, Marcus Ericsson, Christian Rasmussen, Kyle Kirkwood, and Pietro Fittipaldi. Alex Palou also in this group. We see Palou third fastest. Now, Rinus VeeKay clears that timing and scoring loop. He jumps to third, and Davey, Rinus VeeKay, the top 6 or 7 in that 45-minute session. Early on in this one on the alternates, he's third fastest, so Ed's got to feel pretty good about his young driver this weekend.
Yeah. We've seen Ed down there, on those stands like he does, and he's got 2 really good drivers. We say VeeKay, he's done it before. He's won races. He's been on poles. He can get the job done. Just needs to do it more on a consistent level. And not only he, but that team wants that to happen as well. How about Rasmussen? He's in this the same group. He's in P6 right now. Rasmussen is in that Ed Carpenter Racing team, trying to find that little extra speed as well.
110 laps is what they'll compete on Sunday. We'll talk specifics about this racetrack after we check in with Michael Young.
Yeah, just a lot of changes. Very beneficial for those in Group 2 because they can make those changes. For Scott McLaughlin, ride height. Front ride height's making changes on that right now. And for David Malukas and Felix Rosenqvist, I should say, for Felix Rosenqvist, making some rear damper adjustments as his teammate makes his way into pit lane right now. On those alternate reds, David Malukas hits his marks, and the crew will go to work making some slight changes in the remaining 5 minutes or so of this Group 1 practice session.
12 turns, 3 to the left, 9 to the right. It's a tick under 2 miles, 1.964 to be specific. First race, 1984. Front stretch, 2,450 feet. That back stretch is 2,180, but it seems so much longer than that. And Davey, it is flat as flat can be. And I know, again, this is considered a road course, but it races, I think, very much at times like an oval.
Yeah, that's right, and it does. You're right, because it's so fast. I mean, a lot of straightaways here. Obviously, without that chicane, turns 1, 2, and 3 down this front straightaway, they'd be flying down into turn 4. They needed to put that in to slow them down. Like you say, the back straightaway, even though it's not straight, you're wide open through there. So a lot of high-speed areas on this racetrack, no question about it. Somewhat races, like you say, somewhat like an oval. A lot of right, as we talked about, you turn right, left, left, right, a lot on this racetrack. So it's just back and forth. But I'll tell you what. When you sub 1 minute, 58.434 right now with Pelot, our point championship just went to the top of the charts. But how about this? How about Fittipaldi finds himself in that second position right there. Pedro doing a really good job. Now, you can remember that team, that Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan team, they've been on the pole here with Grant before. He had an opportunity to win this race and just didn't quite get the job done. So I know that team, they do have a good setup right here. Seems like Fittipaldi's found that Malukas in that 66 car with Meyer Shank. We know where he's going to be next year in that third position, back to the same thing. Good opportunity. Just took the lead in Worldwide Technology Raceway last week. Just barely touched with Will Power, sending him into the wall. So I looked at that replay time and time again. I think that Malukas was in a really good position to potentially win that race. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done that move, because I probably would have. He did kind of have Will cleared, but Will had nowhere to go with the marbles up above. They kept it tight down there. They barely touched, sending Malukas in the wall. Just unfortunate for that young driver. But he's got a lot of future left in his IndyCar Series career, and I expect to see a lot of wins as well.
4-minute mark of this particular group. Alex Pelot is fastest at a 58.434. Then Pietro Fittipaldi, David Malukas, Rinus VK, Alexander Rossi, the fastest 5. Ericsson is 6th fastest. Then Siegel, Rasmussen, Grosjean, Kirkwood, and that changes as we speak. Joseph Newgarden was mired toward the bottom. He has jumped up the 5th fastest. Siegel 8th, Rasmussen 9th, Grosjean 10th, Kirkwood 11th, Simpson 12th, 13th Lundqvist, 14th Power, 15th Yuri Vips, as 15 cars make up this session. And one thing's for sure, Davey, by and large, as we look out on the track, most drivers playing pretty nice, although we see looks like Fittipaldi and Alexander Rossi locked in a pretty good battle as they work their way through that 4, 5, 6 part of the course.
Yeah, we see again cars getting a little bit airborne down there in turn 1. They're taking that shortcut through there where, as we talked about, they're going underneath the curbing there. So their left side tires on the curbing, but the right sides are not, and that's very odd when you go through a right-hand corner, when you go below the rumble strips or the curbing. So, but when you hit it wrong, as we've seen Kirkwood do, man, you fly up in the air, then you cross over and hit some more curbs, and we see Will Power come through that, cars bouncing around. But obviously the shorter you make this racetrack, the better off you are, and that's one way to do it.
So let's talk a little bit about this race course. We spent a lot of time talking about 1, 2, and 3. I guess I would liken 4 through 5 and on to 6 as almost carousel-like, but then if you take it around to 7, it's almost like a reverse S through there, is it not?
Yeah, so, that's a good point. When you go through off of 2 into 3, it's wide open through 3, getting back on that long straightaway, which is a drag. It plays as a second as a drag strip majority of the time. Turn 4, you got to brake pretty good. Even though it's a long, round corner, you apex, you kind of go high once you apex in 4. And then 4A, they call it, Mark, and then you're back on the bottom there again, and then high again. And then turn 5 is you're right on that bottom, and right on the bottom of that racetrack again, and it's high momentum, high speed. But the tricky one is turn 6. You turn in, it's just a long, awkward corner, Mark, and to get off of the exit off that's where we've seen Joseph Newgarden get all wiggly. It's wide right there, and he got wiggly, hard to get power down. But turn 7 is a tricky one, Mark. It's really wide, and when I say really wide, you can probably stack 10 cars in there. That's how wide it is. But coming off, it's about 3 cars wide. So what happens? The primary line is to stay high, really do a late apex off of turn 7 to get that long, good run down the straightaway. But meanwhile, if there's somebody right behind you, they could either, like slide job you right there, or whatever you want to call, just cut you off and make that a passing zone, actually a really good passing zone. So it's exciting racetrack. Get down to turn 10, you're faster there. You don't really even hardly brake. You just lift and maybe a slight bit of brake. But what happens, turn 11, the right-hander right after it, a lot of cars slide off. If you have too much speed, you can't get the car slowed down. We see a lot of cars that go through that grass into a barrier right before they get to turn 12. Haven't seen that in this session, which is good, but we've seen one big incident off of turn 12 with Christian Brooks getting just a little bit high, turning that car around, hitting that outside barrier.
Someone at some point will go off in turn 11.
Oh,
and it'll be a big off.
Yeah, we've seen it last year. I think in the first practice, we've seen several cars go off, get into that tire barrier. Now, fortunately, it's a long slide and normally not a lot of damage, but it takes a lot of time to fix those tires and get it back off track. But you're right. And so somebody's going to find it this weekend. There's no question, because when you're testing your limits, and sometimes that car just, you want to go it's so appetizing to go through turn 10 just so fast, and the car can handle it. It's just that you have to slow down for 11. And so to do that, you kind of have to go through 10 a little slower than the car wants to, and it's just hard to tell yourself to do that.
In terms of testing that metal of that upper body strength, is it pretty much 1, 2, and 3 where that's the toughest? I mean, is it not nearly as taxing on the rest of the course, or are there other places on the course where that's tested?
I think the situation, when you go down to turn 4, 5, and 6, you're pretty fast down there. I think there's a lot of load on that steering wheel, Mark, and so it takes a lot of strength to get through there. I think that's probably the most physical area on the course is 4, 5, 6, just because there is a lot of speed. The more the downforce, the harder these cars are to turn, and so physically, I think that's probably the most difficult. Now, mentally, it's probably turn 1 just to get through there clean on the starts.
So with that overhead look that we get, we just saw Joseph Newgarden. His time has expired on this session, and he went through 9, 10, and then through 11 and 12, and we saw that wheel fighting a little bit. What adjustments can he make in the cockpit to alleviate that issue a little bit, and then what adjustments can they make to the race car to help that?
Yeah, one thing is cambers and casters. That either helps or hurts. It can help ease that steering down a little bit and make it not so bumpy. But ironically, Mark, when we're in those cars and that wheel's moving around, you don't notice it that much, honestly. It's just kind of a natural progression. They don't have power steering in these cars. It's directly rack and pinion, so the tires are going right through the steering wheel. You feel it all. And with, thousands, 3,500 pounds of downforce, basically, or sometimes more, there's just a big load on that tire. And even though it's moving the wheel around, you just don't notice as much, and there are areas, though, in certain racetracks, this not being one of them, that when you have a heavy load, I'll use Sonoma, that used to be the most difficult for me, is going through turn 1 up the hill in Sonoma, and you're going so fast, and it gets to a point where you physically cannot turn that race car anymore in some of those heavy loaded places. Team
Penske flexing a little bit of muscle in this session. Scott McLaughlin late goes to P1 on the alternates with a time of 58.367. Will Power is third fastest at a 58.729. And Joseph Newgarden is seventh fastest at 58.950. So here's the group, the 16 of them: McLaughlin, Palou, Power, Malukas, Fittipaldi, Grosjean, Newgarden, VK, Rossi, and Ericsson, the top 10. Then Siegel, Kirkwood, Rasmussen, Simpson, Linus Lundqvist, and Yuri Vips. Davey, the interesting mix at the top. Your championship leader right now in the battle for the championship, Alex Palou, second fastest in that session.
Yeah, he'd be happy with that, wouldn't he? If he qualified second, I know only half the cars are out there, but he's towards the front of the group. That's where he wants to be. The farther forward he is, the better off he is. He's supporting DHL this weekend in that Ganassi car, and the farther forward you can go, the better off you're going to be, the safer you're going to be. You hope. We've seen some of the leaders get taken out in turn 1 at times, so the turn 1 is going to be the key for him, just to get through there clean, make sure he gathers up a good points day. Once these cars get spread out and get going on the racetrack, obviously he's one of the best, so it's going to be an exciting weekend to watch what goes on there.
Might have been a couple of drivers that felt like they may have been impeded somewhat here and there on the racetrack, but from everything we saw, at least, I think the overwhelming majority of them now to have a pretty good idea of what their qualifying car is going to look like, huh?
Yeah, no question about it. They were able to find out with the balance changes, what kind of additional speed there is, and I think that split session, I think hats off to IndyCar. I think that's really good. This is a really good idea, just so they have clean track. This is about qualifying. Now they don't do it till tomorrow, but this is a good opportunity for them to be able to try these tires out, see the balance changes, take it to the limits, and get prepared for qualifying. So hats off. I think it's a really good call to split these groups up, like I said, and they all find some clean track time and get the job done.
Well, you can't take advantage if you're Team Penske of anything that you might have gained from your teammate. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to do it during the debrief, Davey, because all three drivers were in that first session.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that gets it done quick, right? They're done. They can go debrief and kind of get ahead of the game, and obviously their cars are in good shape. They just, these teams kind of go over them, put them away, and go home for the night. Going to be a long day here tomorrow at Portland International, and so, yeah, when you have no scathed race cars, so far we don't have any that need any real work on them other than Connor's, just something technical to get that better. But, yeah, it's hopefully a short night for everybody. Go home, they think about it, let these engineers do their work at night, which they usually do while they're having dinner in front of their computer, and come back with maybe a better mousetrap for tomorrow.
10-minute session underway for this second group, and I've always said that if I were king for the day, one of the tracks that I would want to go back to would be the historic Milwaukee Mile. Ask and you shall receive. It is right around the corner. Labor Day weekend, the return to the historic Milwaukee Mile. Michael Montroy joins us, Vice President of IndyCar Promoter and Broadcast Partnerships. First of all, congratulations to so many people that worked so very hard, Michael, to bring IndyCar Series racing back to the historic Milwaukee Mile.
Oh, thanks, Mark. We're thrilled. I mean, to see that track, and I can't wait for the fans to get in next weekend and really see all that the Wisconsin State Fair has done there to get the property and the track back up for us to return for the first time since 2015. We're thrilled. It's going to be a great weekend there.
When did this start to become a reality? When did you, Mark Miles, Roger Penske, Bud Dinker, when did you all feel like, hey, I think this is going to happen?
Well, I'll tell you, we met with the governor, and they were always very supportive in doing some of the safety requirements to get IndyCar to come back there, and they've done a number of repairs there. So I would say a little over a year ago, when they really committed wholehearted to get the track back up to safety standards that we want for our drivers and for our teams running there. And since then, it's been a great relationship with the fair. They've done a great job working with IndyCar to bring us back, and we're super excited. The fan atmosphere, I think, is going to be something that's going to be surprising for everyone. We're really taking a fair type of approach, and we're going to have a lot of the infrastructure open there for free for people to come in and enjoy all the restaurants, bars, and all the other amenities that the fair offers during their state fair.
Well, more about that in just a moment, but first let's give a ton of credit to an outstanding array of corporate sponsors that you've been able to bring on board.
Yeah, no, thank you. The Hy-Vee folks have just been such a supporter of our series, of course, in our doubleheader in Iowa, and when we went to them and said, hey, we're going to run it back in Milwaukee for a doubleheader, are you in? They didn't hesitate. So for them to be on board has been a huge shot in the arm for our efforts there and for the State Fair's efforts. We have a lot of great partners that are going to be filling in. We built some temporary suites above the Turn 1 grandstands, and it's just going to be a phenomenal weekend.
Well, if I was any indication, you guys have done pretty well putting temporary suites up at racetracks. It's gone well for you, has it not?
It has. It won't be quite what we do in Iowa, but it'll be a great atmosphere and a great view going into Turn 1. I mean, the folks that are up there are going to see those cars heading into Turn 1, and it's going to be it's such a great track. There's not a bad seat in the house, and still tickets available, and it'll be a great weekend.
Well, again, touch on some of the highlights in terms of the entertainment besides the NTT IndyCar Series that you'll offer fans over the course of the holiday weekend.
Yeah, again, Mark, we're taking that festival approach, right? It's a race, but there are other things going on. There are other things to entertain the whole family. We really want people to come out, whether they're diehard IndyCar fans or not. And we have free concerts all weekend. Ian Munsick is playing Friday evening, free. Quiet Riot is playing Saturday evening free, and all of the other bars and restaurants around there. Bud Pavilion, for instance, has local acts playing all weekend as well. So there's always going to be something going on, something to look at, something to see, whether you're sitting in the grandstand or whether you're out in the fair footprint where we'll have the free fan zone.
Affordable tickets all weekend long. How can folks find out more about that and get some?
Yeah, they can go to the Wisconsin State Fair Park internet site. It's wisstatefair.com.
Well, congratulations again. I'm excited to be back there. I know the entire NTT IndyCar Series family and the fan base as well. And job well done. And we know that Mother Nature's going to cooperate and give us all a memorable weekend. And we look forward to a long and prosperous and lengthy relationship with the folks at the Milwaukee Mile.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Michael
Montry, Vice President of IndyCar Promoter and Broadcast Partnerships, talking about the historic Milwaukee Mile. 5 minutes remaining in this session. Award, Armstrong, Rosenquist, Rasmussen, and Herta, the top 5 to Michael Young.
Just getting ready to grab Scott McLaughlin. He's through that debrief mode, and he went suddenly from talking to Ben Brentzman to talking to one of the engineers from Chevrolet. I'll interrupt this conversation. What happens in all these conversations? You're talking to Ben, then you'll talk to someone from Chevrolet. It's almost like a light bulb went off, and like, oh, I'm going to talk to him about what's being discussed.
If I told you, I'd have to kill you. But
that's it. That's always the case.
No. But like, no.
Please tell him.
Generally, I think it's just going through our process. Like, there's a couple of things we tried on the engine front, a couple of things we tried on the chassis front. So you talk the chassis with the engineer, and then the engineer out the back. So so far the Freightliner Chevy feels good. It's Freightliner's home ground, so you always want to go fast here, and we have the last few years. So start off strong.
About turns 1, 2, 3, just this course in general, a lot of give and take, and you can go fly. Watch Will go through that first set of corners out of control. How far do you know to push it? How many laps does it take to get a comfort level to know how deep to drive?
I mean, I only hit it as good on my last lap. My best time through there was my last lap. So it takes time to build up how you use the curbs and the way you hit the curbs. It's not just going in as deep as you can. It's how you use them, where you put your car, and obviously you got to think about the long exit, like a straight up to turn 4. So there's a lot to think about. That's why I love this track, because it's very, you got to set up for tight hairpins, big braking stops, so then you got some super quick corners as well. Some of the quickest we go to on the circuit. So really fun and tricky for all of us.
Lastly, I was looking, one of your crew members was looking at your shoes. You've already worn the sides of it all. Explain to the listener how tight it is when you guys climb in. I mean, you're really kind of wedging yourself in. Your feet, how much room do you have to move in the cockpit of an NTT IndyCar Series car? I'm
a little different to some guys. I think I run cups underneath my pedals, so it holds my ankles in place. But so like, someone like Joseph, he doesn't run those, so his boots are pristine when he gets out of the car. Mine are torched because you're going through like 4 or 5 Gs, and then your ankles are just going to and fro. But everything's built there for me. Like, no one else can fit in that as good as I can. So, but that's what you want, and that's how we drive fast.
Do you get claustrophobic at all?
No, but my best friend I put in here, I sat him in, and he was like panicking. So, that's why I set up for me.
There you go. Have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, boss.
That's Scott McLaughlin.
Good stuff from Scott McLaughlin. Davey, I remember a story several years ago from Formula One where I believe it was Rolf Schumacher was testing a car for the first time, and he went out and he turned a handful of laps, and he came in and he parked it, and he had someone go get the racing shoes that he had from the year before, because the tread on the old shoes matched up with the pedal that he had in the car, and the new shoes that he was wearing at the time did not match the pedal, and it made it uncomfortable for him in terms of working the pedals of the race car. That's how refined it can be for some guys.
It's the little things, right? You don't think that much about it, and most of these fans are going, "What now?" They don't even think about that we have the pedals to deal with. And back in the day, there were 3 pedals with the clutch being down there, brake, throttle, how far they are apart from each other, where they're positioned exactly, what you have on those, whether it's some tape on there that makes some traction on them. Like he said, yes, cups in the top of the car to kind of hold his ankles in place. Today, you only have 2 pedals in there, a throttle pedal and a brake pedal. Clutch is now on the steering wheel. So changes it up a little bit different. No heel and toe anymore in these cars. But no matter what, you have to be comfortable. I mean, that is a key thing. And he's right. You put some people in these cars, even without the canopies, and they feel like they get a little bit claustrophobic. And And now with the canopy, even more so. I mean, obviously you're surrounded and they're pretty good. But, you know, if you're somebody claustrophobic, I always tell them this is just know that you can just stand up and get out of the car. So that maybe will help you a little bit and on that side of it. But these seats that they pour, the material they use made for impacts, and they fit you exactly when you sit in these beaded seats. I mean, it fits you better than anything. I mean, every little piece of your body is being touched and being surrounded. So if you do have impact, your entire body takes it, including the headrest, the head supports, and what they do and what Dallara and the series have done to make these cars safer, moving the drivers back and the bulkheads where they are located. There's so many things, but driver comfort is one of the things that they all think about to make sure that all these drivers can be comfortable. And by the way, back when they designed these cars, I was fortunate to be one of the middle-sized drivers, average-sized drivers to get fitted in them. But I remember Viso was the smaller guy, and you had Justin Wilson as the bigger guy. And Dallara took us all to Italy and made sure that we all fit in those cars properly so they could change things around within that same cockpit and make no matter what size driver you are comfortable in them. So that was key.
The Davey Hamilton I knew never used a brake pedal, so that was the one that was least used in
that tells you I'm so beat up sometimes too, maybe.
Yeah. So we've got about 10 seconds remaining in the session, and all in all, it's been a clean day for the NTT IndyCar Series, Davey. I mean, there have been a handful of offs, and Kyle Kirkwood took a wild ride from 1 to 3. Didn't do that again afterwards, by the way. But boy, look at Marcus Armstrong. We talked about his good run at Worldwide Technology Raceway, and boy, he is currently P1 in this session. His teammate Scott Dixon behind him. Then Herta, Award, Ferrucci, the top 5. Rosenquist, Lundquist, Vips, Lundgaard, and Robb, the top 10. Rahal, Harvey, Rasmussen, Siegel, and Simpson through 15. By the way, that fast speed at 58.610 for Marcus Armstrong, so a good session for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then teammate Scott Dixon right behind him, 58.7, 1/10 off. And then you got the Andretti car with Herta continuing. Always finds himself towards the front of the field in that third spot at 7.5, 58.75. Pato Award, Ferrucci, another good run. That AJ Foyt team, they had some problems with that 14 car. I talked to Craig Baranowski, been with Foyt for almost as long as AJ, long time. And he's a stable fixture in that team. And talked last week, and he just had a lot of gremlins. We really didn't know that at the Worldwide Technology, and it looks like they got all those little gremlins fixed in that car and able to come out here and lay some speed down.
All right, busy day tomorrow, folks. At 9 o'clock local time, noon Eastern time. IndyCar practice session number 2, a 1-hour session, if you will. They'll have 45 minutes of total practice time, and they have 1 hour to get it in. Indy next practice session number 2. Louis Foster looks to secure the championship this weekend. 11:20 local time, 2:20 Eastern time. Then at 12:30, IndyCar qualifying. That's local time at 3:30 Eastern. Then Indy next quals at 4:20 local time, 7:20 Eastern. And then we'll wrap the day up on Saturday with a final practice session at 5:15 local time and 8:15 Eastern time. Indy next race on Sunday, and the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland set for noon local time, 3 Eastern on Sunday. The director of IndyCar Radio, also handling master control operations in our Indianapolis studios, Chris Pollock, on-site engineering and production courtesy of Rick Evans. Great stuff, great insight from Michael Young on pit lane. For Nick Yeoman and our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton, this is Mark Janes. So long for now from the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland.